Fala, rapaziada, estamos ao vivo, acredito eu, para mais uma live aí, transmissão da Community Week. Estamos no Town Hall número 42. Hoje vamos ter várias novidades aí. Michael falou, Chris também vai estar. E hoje é um dos dias mais importantes, se quiçá o dia mais importante aí da Community Week. Vou chamar a galera aí, né? Porque não tem ninguém ainda ao vivo, mas estamos ao vivo. Pronto. Vai pro espaço. Tá rolando. Ah. Isso. Vai pro espaço. Tá rolando. Ah. Agora sim. Eu vou ser a sua companhia no Town Hall. Tá? Não vou falar tanto, não. A gente vai comentando aqui. Mas não irei ficar tagarelando aqui, até porque a estrela são os devs, né? Michael, Bruce, Dom. Sei que 3 da tarde é difícil para todo mundo acompanhar, sei disso. Mas vai ficar aí gravado para quem quiser assistir depois também. Quem quiser me fazer companhia aqui, seja muito bem-vindo. Chega aí no chat que a gente conversa, bate aquele papo de sempre. E quem não puder, assiste depois, né? Assiste depois, vai ficar aí gravado. É bom, porque quem não pode estar presente aí, vai assistir depois, beleza? Ó, chegou esse aí. Thunder Jogos, tamo junto. Vamos nessa. Tá chegando o povo aí. Tá o volume aqui. Já vai começar.
Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? Please confirm the chat as always. Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Welcome everyone to the Star Atlas Town Hall number 42. It's always good to have a Star Atlas Town Hall, you know? As always, I have a co-host, Michael Wagner, with me. Today, I actually we were in a call with Michael right before this one, just going through everything that we were going to share during this town hall. And we left 1 minute before joining the town hall. And somehow I managed to grab myself a coffee. I will have to share that this is the worst coffee that I ever made. I think it's cold. But at least I'm drinking something, you know. It works. So as you know, we also have a community week going on. And this is the week to celebrate the community, everything that has been going on in Star Atlas, wouldn't be possible without the community. So we're taking a whole week to celebrate the Star Atlas community. And as you know, just as a quick reminder for everyone here, well, today we have the town hall, of course, and there's also the Portuguese speaking brew. So if you speak Portuguese, you can go to the Brazilian and Portuguese channel to participate in the Portuguese brew today, if you're interested. Also, we have the Atlas Brew number 100.
Lembrou aí, inclusive, do brew que vai ter hoje às 20 horas, tá? Para falantes de português. Então vai ter lá português de Portugal, brasileiros, angolanos, enfim, quem estiver falando português aí, esteja bem-vindo às 20 horas. Chega aí no canal porque eu vou transmitir também. E vai ser uma festa muito boa também, né? Porque aí vai ter todo mundo ali, BR, vai estar presente lá, beleza?
So yeah, it's 100 ships that we will be giving away. Also on
434
Thursday, we have
pessoas.
Copa. Copa is the Star Atlas Guild competition, where guilds will be presenting live what they have been working on and what their plans are for the future. So if you're looking make sure to join Copa on Thursday. They're also competing for prize, really interesting prizes that
Dante,
are.
we are losing
Yeah.
you pretty bad right now, or at least I am. I don't know if everyone's hearing you cut out like that. Just want to give you, oh, and he is gone. You're stuck here with me. Santi's back. I'd just like to thank you all for joining the town hall today. It was a wonderful session. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk soon.
Santi foi de base.
Obviously, guys, I can't do the town hall without my wonderful co-host up here with me. Santi, we cannot hear you right at the moment if you are talking. And I'm just going to sit here in awkward silence. Could never possibly fill Santi's shoes with the soothing tone of Santi's voice running through our introduction, our main topics for the event today. One thing I will say is we do have an incredibly awesome event lined up. I was going to banter back and forth with Santi about how many people have attempted to frustrate me this morning, but in spite of all of that, I will not be brought down because I'm just so incredibly excited about everything we're going to talk about today. I don't want to overhype it, but we are going to be getting into some dates to some extent. We're going to be talking about really what the roadmap is for this year. That's going to be the bulk. Santi, I see you're back. I don't want to keep rambling on here.
Can you hear me
Aí
now?
que vai anunciar algumas datas, algumas coisas interessantes, o roadmap aí do que vai rolar, tá?
Well, this is the Argentinian internet just catching up with me. It happens sometimes.
Blame Malay.
Happens. Blame Millet. Yeah, why not? So I was covering the community week before you lost me. I don't know if I managed to explain what Copa is, but just going back to that, Copa is our guild competition where guilds will be presenting what their plans are for the future, what they have been working on. So make sure to go there and represent your guild during Copa. That's going to be a great event. Also, we have Johnny Awards on Friday. Johnny Awards are the community awards where we're celebrating everyone that added value to Star Atlas for the past year. So make sure to join that one as well. Support who you want to win. Voting has ended already, but it's everyone in that list has been adding crazy value for Star Atlas in many different ways. So it's one of my favorite events at Star Atlas, and it's going to be really, really good one. You don't want to miss that one either. And also shout out to everyone who didn't make it. There's a lot of people that added a ton of value, but actually didn't manage to make it. So yeah, wanted to have that clear as well.
Santi just wanted to give you a rest in peace. Thanks for trying.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, of course. And also, I know that a lot of people here are looking for the Sealy code. And the Sealy code for today is Townhall42. Very easy. Altogether, Townhall42. So go make sure you get that on our Sealy links. So you can get the Atlas Brew Badge. Attend all the events, and so you don't miss the Atlas Brew Badge. So now, Michael, I think we can get on the main topics, unless you have anything else you will chat about with me here live.
No, man, no. I was trying to cover for you while you were away there, but generally just really excited for today. As I was getting at the majority of the conversation today is really just to give you all some updates on what we've been working on and what we intend to work on through the course of this year. I know we've been pretty light on sharing any details around a roadmap. We've been working on, and Dom specifically has been working on getting one ready for publishing. We have some big stuff included in there. We have some exciting kind of unannounced projects that we've been working on as well. I won't share everything, but yes, this is essentially the leak day. I want to get people excited. I honestly, genuinely have never been more excited about the future of Star Atlas than I am right now. I've said that a lot of times in the past, but man, I don't know, Santi. It just feels like with I'll tell you a little story. So all the way back and we've got a big agenda, so I'll try to make this quick. But going all the way back to the inception of Star Atlas, and through early 2021, I can't tell you how many times like Jacob, Danny, myself, Pablo, we're looking at the unfolding of events in front of us and just saying, man, everything is so serendipitous. It's as if the universe wants to see Star Atlas get created. Everything was working out perfectly. Now, of course, through the history of the company, not everything has worked out perfectly. You and I have often talked about the duality of life. You need all of the good or all of the bad to fully appreciate the good, and we've gone through those ups and downs through the company, but we're actually back on the upswing. And that's what I'm getting at is we've kind of cycled all the way back around to this state where I feel like, man, the serendipity is in front of us. Everything is playing out perfectly once again, and all of the stars are aligning in front of us. And that's where I feel like we're at right now. I feel like we are in a much better position foundationally as a company for everything that we've already built, and what we're prepared to kick off on this year and years to follow. But we are in such a good position right now. And so that's why I'm so excited about talking about this. It's not to get you guys overly hyped. It's because I'm extremely excited about this, and I really think we have a super promising year ahead of us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I echo all that, and also the duality of life. That has been a conversation between Michael and myself multiple times, more specifically during the tough times. So yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Michael. I think we can get started with some Sage updates, right?
Yes, let's do that. Okay, so I guess what I do want to clarify is this kind of roadmap update isn't necessarily going to be in chronological order, simply because I think it would be confusing to do this verbally. Now, when we publish the roadmap, you'll obviously be able to see how all of the different projects across the company integrate with one another and see the timing of those releases. But given that this is a verbal presentation of timelines, I'm going to contextualize it in the form of each individual project that we have in development. So that is, to say we're talking about Sage, we're going to talk about DAC, we're going to talk about DAO, we'll talk about Unreal Engine, the Crew mobile app, etc. We'll discuss all of these things independently, understanding that there is overlap in when various features or products are going to be rolled out and launched. Okay, so
Yeah.
with all
And disclaimer, Michael, as well. Everything is subject to change. Everything is estimate.
yes,
I had
thank
to get
you.
that in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate. I think we even have it on in bold on our agenda, and I completely missed it. Thank you for that reminder. Yes, guys, I've said this time and time again. These are indeed just our best estimates. If everything rolls out as expected right now, these dates would be accurate. However, as we know, this is a rapidly shifting environment. So we're doing our best to give you timelines, but please understand these are not promises and these are not guarantees that anything is going to happen in this exact fashion or timeline. So,
Cool.
One thing I can tell you though, that is guaranteed is before we even get into Saged and what's happening with Starbased, which is the very next release, is officially announcing today that on Thursday of this week, we are actually going to be making another change to Faction Fleet. So we are going to be reducing Faction Fleet rewards by an additional 33% off of the original amount. That would be a 50% reduction from where it is today. And what we're going to be doing is increasing SDUs per minute by 33% as well. So SDU scanning now has a maximum discovery rate in Sage of 2,000 units per minute. Now, this is really just an interim step. Chris, who's actually going to be joining us today, is really trying to bring in line the balance between the potential and capacity for material production or raw resource production in the game with what is our essentially Atlas emission gating mechanism, and that is the SDU. Now, I don't want to go on too far of a tangent here because Chris, I'm sure we'll talk about it. And I don't want to necessarily throw him under the bus, but one of the other options we had would have been to nerf crafting rates. So you could reduce the amount of production in the economy to bring it in line with the SDU discovery rate. That said, I was in favor of continuing forward with the higher production rates, and now through this interim change, we're going to be bringing the SDU discovery rate up a bit, which will further balance resource extraction with things like redemptions of RFRs, etc. Now, this is an interim step, and I do want to officially announce today as well that when we go live with Starbased, that is all of the core features, and Starbase could roll out over, effectively over a couple of weeks. I'll get more into what we're doing here next, but when we go live with the core feature set of Starbased, that is Sage Starbased, we are going to completely sunset Faction Fleet. So I will, again, I think we're going to get into this a bit further in the next section, but just realize that Faction Fleet is, yep, I mean, you guys have called it, probably 4 to 6 weeks away from being fully deprecated.
Nice. Classic. So yeah, some big news dropped right there. So I love the reactions in the chat. RIP Faction Fleet, people are saying. It had a good run,
Coisas
bro.
importantes aí, né?
It
Starbase
had a pretty incredible
vai
run. I mean,
reduzir
there was
a
definitely some
vai
ups and
reduzir
downs in
por
there.
30% aí a emissão
A lot of the evolution of
de Atlas
Faction
no
Fleet
Faction
was,
Fleet.
I would say, at least unanticipated by me. I'd love the Malay. I thought it was a Fueda, but my Spanish is not good, as you know. So anyway, I'm seeing that meme. That was pretty hilarious. But even things like transitioning over to the player-driven crafting economy of R4 and the impact that had on Faction Fleet. But it's a little over 2 years running. 2 years and a quarter? So I think it's time that we send that off on its way and move people into active gameplay reward mechanisms. And look, at some point in the not too distant future, not going to cover anything on this really today, but I can tell you there are fleet rental programs in development right now, and we're having discussions with some of these different teams. And to the extent that we can get fleet rentals and ship rentals available inside Sage and Unreal Engine and beyond, that's something I'm very excited about. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. That is huge.
I think just looking at myself, Santi, with what I have to manage and the limited amount of time that I have, I personally can't wait to get rentals online so I can just sit back and collect, my rental income off of my fleets. But I digress.
Yeah. Very important, very important. But I think we can get more into Starbase right now, Michael. As everyone knows here, the next iteration is going to be Starbase. And a lot of people are aware of what it is. We'll cover it regardless here. But just really quick, Michael, what's the stage of Starbase right now?
Yeah, when is Starbase coming out? So to your point, I mean, what is this? This is the transition out of more of the solo style gameplay that we have in Sage today, where you're focused on extraction, mining, crafting, and primarily your income mechanism is through request for resources. The council RFRs is how you're earning Atlas. But just so everyone's aware, as we transition into Star-based, this is going to be a more collaborative style of gameplay. However, to the question of when, well, we are looking at opening up the private beta access on our community private test server this week, probably the end of this week. If you're in that private test server, you've signed NDAs and you've been coordinating with our team. So this week we are looking at getting the first iteration of Starbased into the private test server. Now, again, even in the private test server, this is not going to be every single feature, but it's going to be a lot of the features to get things started. One thing John wanted me to mention, that's Xcode, is that we're looking at gamifying this a little bit. John, I have a few ideas. I don't think I got to share with you this week, but ways where we can create challenges, which is essentially each of the factions competing to complete and upgrade, say, 3 different star bases in a particular order with race conditions to do so would be a fun thing. Now, depending on the results of that community testing, this private beta access, and any improvements or fixes or changes that we need to make, we would be looking at. I want to be conservative here, but could be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks, could be 4 weeks before we
You said it
see.
4 to 6, maybe? No.
I don't think it's quite 4 to 6. I think it's a little bit before that. But again, that's after we go live, after we get some testing in. Let's see what the results of that are. The one thing I would note is that I personally am less um, driven by ensuring that we get something out quickly in this particular release. There was a period of time, especially towards the end of last year, that it was critical for us to get anything out. And that's where Sage Labs was really born. I think we're in a pretty good position with the performance and usage of labs today, and so we do want to make sure that this one's a bit more polished coming out to you. If it takes an extra week or two, that's okay. But what we're looking at is taking this feedback in from the community and getting you all access to the new version of Sage Starbased as soon as possible.
Yeah, and Michael, on that, I know a lot of people are asking how to get on the testing and all that. We will be looking not for this one, but for the future. We are exploring options on how we will create a council for future community testing. And our idea is for that council to be voted by the people, by the community. So stay tuned on that one as well. Announcement of an announcement right there.
I also think that there will be. I know we haven't really formalized a structure around this. Some of this was, kind of applying and submitting your interest to participate. When we went through the first round of selection, we did look at people's experience with beta testing and their capacity to actually contribute to improvement of the product. So, we understand everybody wants to get in and experience this, but what we were looking for specifically were people who could help produce reports and inform us on the development process. So it wasn't just about getting the first and earliest access. It was about making sure that what we released to the public was a superior product than going into that. So we are looking at formalizing more of that beta access qualification process, but I think it's something probably for later in the year. Nevertheless, we do want to think through ways that you can actually engage in the ecosystem today and demonstrate how much you're involved in the ecosystem today, and use that as a qualification in the future for getting early access.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, Michael, I think we can get a little bit more into details on what Starbase is. How will this transition to Starbase change the overall labs gameplay people are used to play? We are not going to be playing solo anymore, right? And by the way, I will try to switch to my computer again, so be right back.
Okay. Yeah, I will. I'll jump in and take Santi's question while he's rebooting there. But Yeah, I would say it's fair to claim that you are no longer going to be solo player completely inside Sage. As it stands today, there's certainly some level of collaboration in terms of marketplace trading, or the controversial subject of OTC trading. But the reality is you're primarily working on creating probably RFRs for yourself, maybe crafting redemption recipes of ships or other items, NFTs that you can claim. But for the most part, we're seeing the activity flow through RFRs, which means you're doing everything you can to produce these RFRs for yourself and claim that atlas. So the big difference with Starbase, and there are a couple of points that I do want to emphasize here, but the big difference with Starbase is that you are now going to be collaborating with the rest of your faction to upgrade these Starbases that are on the maps. Now, in the same way that with Sage, we had pre-populated Starbases throughout this galaxy of Gallia, there will still be a pre-population of Starbases. You're not starting from scratch, and you're not starting from tier 0. All of the star bases will start at tier 1, and again, they will be pre-populated around the map. Now, as opposed to extracting resources and following a crafting recipe for these RFRs, RFRs will be going away. The request for resources will be going away. Okay, so that is no longer the Atlas earning mechanism. Not going to be crafting RFRs. The way that you will earn Atlas in the future is based on crafting components and compounds and depositing those or contributing those to the upgrade of starbases within your faction. Now you can upgrade these starbases. You're also going to be responsible for maintaining and restocking these starbases. And so all of these are economic sinks in the game. And the way that you will ultimately earn Atlas is through the earning and redemption of LP. Now, there's a lot to be said about LP. I'm actually going to, hold back here because I know Chris is joining us shortly. He might have some comments on that. I don't want to overstep here. But what's also really cool about this version of Sage is that you are going to be participating in character progression, if you will, progression across the council rank system. Now, we do not have the council rank restrictions in place. For anyone that's relatively new, council rank is a progression system that has embedded restrictions on the sheer scale of your operation. I'm not going to get into specifics on that. I think a lot of people know what it is. You could always reference the Sage game manual, though, for more details. But you are going to be essentially pre-leveling your character. And I do want to point out that we did this specifically. It was very important to me that going into the transition into these new systems, these new progression systems, or anything that would impose restrictions on our existing player base, that we find a way to effectively grandfather people in and at least give them the opportunity to be best prepared for these systems when they are fully implemented. That is to say, not everybody knew when they bought ships that there could be some restrictions on fleet sizes or fleet capacity, or how many fleets you might be able to operate. And as a result of that, what we're doing with this system is giving you an opportunity to pre-level, level your council rank, and get prepared for the next versions of Sage. And when we do fully implement things like council rank, but it's cool. You're going to be leveling up your character. I don't know if I should share this, but in the background, you are actually going to be leveling up licenses as well. You won't see that, but you are going to be leveling up various licenses like mining and crafting and scanning licenses. Yeah, and otherwise working with the rest of your faction to essentially construct star bases faster than the other factions. So let me pause there. I think that was quite a lot. I think I covered everything that I wanted to get into for this section.
Yeah, you covered a ton. Can you hear me well now, Michael? Please tell me yes.
Does anybody hear Santi?
Okay, that's a yes. Then a question for you, Michael. Is we're going to need to migrate from one ID to the other, right? From
Yes.
the game ID.
Yeah. And I'm going to totally blame Chris because I was in favor of making it as easy as possible to pull all of your assets out of the game. But Chris said, No, we absolutely have to charge people to get their assets out of the game. The short answer is
Get
all
right,
right.
Chris.
I'm joking, guys. This was my requirement. Yes, you will need to migrate out of the game. This game ID. We've always communicated at some point when we transition, when we have new features and stuff coming out, you are going to need to migrate out of current game ID into the new game ID, effectively the new Galaxy, right? You are going to have to pay your transportation, your fuel costs to move from various star bases where you have materials and resources right now back to the CSS. There is no way around that. Now, what we are looking at doing, and I don't have exact certainty on just yet, but what we are working on doing is after Sage Starbase goes live, at some point we will modify the mechanics in the previous game ID, the current game ID, and make it so that you can warp unlimited distance with no warp cooldowns, and yeah, I think that's it. Just unlimited distance, with no cooldown, but you are still subject to paying the full warp cost. We're just eliminating the restrictions. So regardless, you can exit the game ID quickly and conveniently, but you will be subject to the full fuel cost. Now, I guess the last piece of alpha before we transition over here is you've got a couple of weeks. So if you want, you can start positioning yourself right now for this transition that you know is coming in the future, which
Posicionado.
I'm not going to fully lay out the strategy for you, but again, exit and entry into Sage is through the CSS. I'll leave it at that. And Chris,
Cool.
I'm sorry. I love giving you a hard time.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk yet, but took a lot of self-control not to. No, I think it's a wise decision ultimately. The way that we've decided to do this Starbase transition from the game IDs. Obviously, you were the kind of the mind behind that. Make it easy in terms of the time that the player has to commit, but obviously, be a bit game breaking if people were able to get warps for free. So I think it's a nice happy medium we've landed on.
Yep.
Great. Hey, and I saw somebody, it might have been Bodhi, asking about the other mechanics. And just to be clear, yes, things like scanning, extraction, mining, etc., those will be disabled. There will be no economic incentives remaining in this current game ID when we transition to the new one. And really all we're doing is creating convenience for anyone that wants to collect all of their raw materials or crafted materials, collect them all, bring them to the CSS, and exit from the game. We're just eliminating those cooldowns and the warp timers, and you're essentially instantly moving around the map, just paying the fuel cost to do so.
Yep. And well, I think a formal introduction is always needed, Chris, right? But we have here on stage, we have Chris, our head of game economy. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Doing pretty well. Super pumped for the town hall today and extremely excited for the changes that we have coming to Sage over the next couple of weeks and months, and really just to the entire Star Atlas lineup. But I'm specifically here to talk about Sage.
Yes. And with that said, we can get a little more into the details. I'm sure that all the people here are waiting to learn more about how the economy inside Starbase is going to work. So let's chat a little bit about Starbase and the economy. So how do you think that is going to change the economy in your eyes from where we are at now to Starbase?
There are obviously a bunch of mechanics that we're adding and different gameplay loops of different ways to interact with the game, and potentially some kind of intra-faction competition, which would be really exciting. But there's also inter-faction competition, and that's through the way that Atlas is going to be emitted. Probably the most significant change that we're going to see in Sage is the Atlas emissions curve, just completely fundamentally changing. Right now, Atlas is emitted at a constant rate. If you've got a ship, then it's going to emit. There's no competition for that Atlas. If you don't put an effort on a day in score, as long as your ship is topped up, you're going to get Atlas. Honestly, the same could be true. The same could be said of Sage right now. You get an RFR, you're going to be able to turn it in for Atlas. What we're going to introduce in Sage Starbase is going to be a fixed Atlas emission curve. So this means on a daily basis, there's a fixed amount of Atlas that's going to drop. Now, for your guys' reference, I think this is an important piece of information to give right now. It'll probably be around 4.5 million Atlas per day. So you can imagine, take what we're at right now and decrease that to about 4.5 million. Remember, we will have deprecated Score, and Sage will be the only Atlas emissions in the Star Atlas ecosystem. Now, I said there's competition. As you earn LP in the game for performing specific actions, you're going to end up getting, you're going to have kind of an earned LP for the specific day, and we're going to compare that earned LP to all the other LP that was earned in your faction on the day. And we're going to give you Atlas on an epoch time period. An epoch, we're thinking right now it's maybe going to be 24 hours, still subject to adjustment and change, especially after we start to see the game testers come in. But basically what this means is that if you put more energy, more effort into the Star Atlas ecosystem on a specific day, you're going to have a larger LP share of your faction for that day, and you're going to get more of the Atlas pie that is specifically set aside for your faction. Now, importantly, that 4.5 million Atlas is going to be split up in 3 different ways. 1.5 million per faction. You can imagine that this is going to have a natural balancing effect between the different faction populations. At the same time, there's going to be advantages to being a part of a certain faction. There's going to be economies of scale that come with being in a larger faction. Because we all know there are other ways to make Atlas than purely through the Atlas emissions curve. So that's the biggest change. That's the thing I'm most excited about. And yeah, we'll get more into the specifics of how the mechanics are going to work in a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a huge change. Now people have to compete for that Atlas in-game competition. Gotta love it. The gamers and the players are probably happy right now. But yeah, as you said, there are more economic loops that involve the Starbase, right? Just that Atlas missions is the biggest change, but there is more that is coming, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of the Starbase kind of construction and upgrading loop that we have. You've heard of Starbase construction where basically there's just an empty plot of land in the middle of space and you would construct a Starbase there. For this version of Sage, we're going to start all Starbases at level, I think level 1 is where we're going to start them. So there will be a structure there that you can land your ship on, you can deposit resources, and you can do crafting jobs. But lower level Starbases are going to only have access to specific recipes. So you need to level the Starbase up in order to get more powerful, more advanced recipes. Now, as you upgrade the Starbase, you're also going to get access to recipes that are going to allow you to upgrade the Starbase further, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you're going to start at the Central Space Station, of course, and the Central Space Station is always going to be considered a level 6 Starbase. So it's going to start off with the ability to produce everything you need in the game. And you're going to spread out from the CSS to the other Starbases over time. Now, as you can imagine, because there's going to be this essential, this loop of transporting upgrading materials from one Starbase to another, there's going to be a huge additional kind of freighting gameplay loop to the game beyond what we already have now. We've also got the recipe locking behavior. You're going to get LP from contributing Starbase upgrading materials to the Starbase. So now there's kind of this dual, there are 2 different ways to get Atlas. One way is to just sell the materials to crafters, for example, and they're going to craft those materials, and then maybe those crafters are going to sell those crafted materials to transporters, and the transporters are going to transport it to the next, and you can see kind of this economic labor market forming. So there are going to be different ways to get Atlas through the market, but also, of course, contributing those resources directly to the upgrading process in order to get LP. Another new feature that we're going to have that I'm really excited about is upkeep. Starbase upkeeping is going to also reward the player with LP. And I should also say all of the actions that I'm talking about in this little tidbit here are also going to contribute XP to the player. So the player is going to get XP from the different actions. XP is resulting from crafting, mining, traveling, doing almost anything in the game is going to get you XP. And I'll get a little bit more into that in a second. So Starbase upkeeping is similar to upgrading in that, first of all, it's a community-wide activity. So with upgrading, when you guys see the Starbase upgrading recipes and the upkeeping requirements, your jaws are going to drop because they seem incredibly high. Now, what we've tried to do, there are some Web 2 games that have done this. I think we're probably one of the first Web 3 games to do this, but it's basically a community goal. And you guys are going to have to upgrade the Starbases as a faction. So you can imagine, you know the total productivity of the Sage economy. Now think about pooling all those resources together to try and upgrade these massive Starbases. Okay, so the Starbase upgrading and upkeeping processes are both going to be community driven. It's going to require, coordination and everybody working together in order to keep these things upgraded and upkept. Now, upkeeping is the process of contributing for now 2 or 4 to the Starbase. One of those is going to be food, and one of those is going to be toolkits. And what's going to happen if the Starbase runs out of food? All crafting processes are going to be paused. If the Starbase runs out of toolkits, all upgrading processes are going to be paused. So you need to keep the processes, or you need to keep the Starbase upkept through both of those R4 in order to keep the Starbase operating. I'm super excited about this process because not only does it kind of really introduce this hyper-realistic game economy loop, right? You can't just so far, crafting has been relatively, obviously you need to contribute your crew and you're going to have Atlas fees associated with your crafting recipes. But for the most part, the Starbase being there and functioning has been taken for granted. That's no longer going to be the case once we introduce upkeeping. And upkeeping is going to be a mechanic that plays an even bigger role later on once we have Starbase combat and such. We're not going to talk about that today, of course, because that's not in this release. Okay. So talked about upgrading, upkeeping. You're going to get LP from upkeeping and upgrading. LP is called loyalty points because it's loyalty to your faction. You're only going to get LP for actions that result in a positive thing for your faction. So you're not going to get LP if you're out mining, at an asteroid in the middle of space just for yourself. You're only going to get LP if you contribute to the faction. That said, again, you could potentially not participate in either of any of the LP producing actions and still probably make a hefty amount of Atlas in the secondary marketplace. The other type of kind of profile or account locked currency, it's not really a currency because, like I said, it's not tradable. It's locked to your account, is going to be experience points. Experience points are earned for almost everything in the game, whether it's upkeep, upgrading. You're going to get experience points from crafting. You're going to get experience points from exiting a planet when you're done mining. You're going to get it from mining, traveling, anything that you can think of, you're going to get XP for. And that's going to contribute to your council rank level. Council rank is a super involved and complex, the player progression system designed by, our favorite game designer and head of game design, Chip. So what this is going to do is in time, not in this iteration. For this iteration, we're just keeping track of XP. We're allowing players to pre-level their accounts. What it's going to allow people to do is see what their council rank level is. And in the future, council rank is going to give you points that allows you to specifically upgrade certain aspects of your account. So maybe you want to be able to have a bigger fleet, more ships in your fleet. Maybe you want to have higher level ships, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the XP system. Keep in mind that for the most part, it's cosmetic at this stage, but you are actually getting that XP and you're actually earning that stuff. The XP system is going to be a little bit complex in that we have a very wide variety of different players in our economy. So what we wanted to do was we ended up kind of taking almost you could think of like a casual game approach to this, or really, I think this is pretty common in a lot of different collection games and kind of daily games that you're supposed to engage with every single day. We're going to have an XP cap on each day. So what this basically means is that players who don't have the largest ships are probably they should be able to, the way we balanced it, hit those XP caps on the day without too terribly much trouble. And then players with super large fleets that, would probably just, level up instantaneously. We've restricted that to a fixed amount of XP per day. So this is basically just an XP cap. Don't worry, if you've got a big fleet, if you've got a lot of ships, you're still going to level up very quickly. So this is not going to be a concern in the long run, especially since this program doesn't come online until future iteration of Sage. So that's LP, XP. I've mentioned the Atlas distribution already, but on the daily, you're going to earn LP, and you're going to have some daily or epoch LP for your account. Let's say you've earned 100 LP on the day, and your entire faction earned 10,000 LP. Well, that means that you got 1% of the LP share for that day. The Sage program is going to calculate the distribution of Atlas per player based on the percentage of the LP share that you have. So on a daily basis, again, we're not sure 100% yet if an epoch will be 24 hours or less, but let's just take the 24 hours. You'll get 1% of that 24-hour or that epoch Atlas emissions. So if the Atlas emissions for the epoch were 1 million, for example, you get 1% of 1 million Atlas. Or probably more realistically, 0.001% or something like this. Okay, I've gone through kind of most of the complex stuff. I'm going to hit some of the basic things next, and then one really, really big update that's probably going to shake things up. So,
Chris, before you do that, could you mind if I interrupt you just quickly here, and let's tease out that big release stuff just for one question,
okay.
Because you and I actually have not discussed yet, but the intention, the plan, is that the rewards are divided across the factions. Which is to say, if there's I'm pulling arbitrary number, 6 million Atlas total daily distribution across all of Sage, that would be divided across all three factions, 2 million apiece, right? Something like that. Now, any comments on that is really the question, because you and I have not covered it recently.
You mean is that how it's going to be distributed across the three factions? Because yes.
Yes. So your faction, I just wanted to emphasize that your faction alignment is going to determine the epochal reward pool that you're eligible for across the three factions.
Yeah, that's right. And like I said, it kind of it acts sort of as a I don't want to call it it's not really wealth redistribution, but it basically gives those smaller guys a slight leg up in the short term, and in the long term, it encourages people who are new players or maybe players from other factions that aren't super committed to their faction to switch over. I don't pay off in game terms to go switch factions. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out in the short term, especially a couple weeks after we release. So jumping into some of the final notes before I get into that big shakeup, there are going to be 3 new resources. Most of you guys know this: silica, nitrogen, and titanium ore. Now, those are going to replace other items that already exist on the map. So I won't share the exact locations or what they're going to replace, etc. But they're going to replace things that are already on the map. Now, that doesn't mean that anything is going to become unattainable. So we're not going to remove all the copper on the map. We're just going to maybe replace one copper deposit, for example, with a titanium ore deposit. Okay, so 3 new resources, and I think that number here is off. Actually, I think it's 5 new recipes. We're going to have titanium, which is going to be obviously made from titanium ore, toolkits 3 and frameworks 3. And these are just basically more powerful, kind of more efficient versions of toolkits 1, 2 and frameworks 1, 2. And these are going to be built out of titanium. And then we're going to have aerogel, which is made from silica and nitrogen. And aerogel is going to be combined, I believe, with crystal lattice, just kind of winging it here. And that's going to create field stabilizers. And field stabilizers are one of the primary inputs to Starbase upgrading. So those are kind of the new recipes, new items that are going to be available for trade on the marketplace, a whole new set of game loops to engage in.
Are we not getting Astroglide in this update?
I don't think so, Michael. I think we're going to hold off a couple more releases for that one. Okay, so the big, I don't want to make too big of a deal about this, but
Steady, Chris. Steady.
Everybody is all up in arms about the SDU emissions, and we know that this has been an issue. As everyone knows, SDU emissions, as they currently stand, are a gating mechanism for the Atlas currency. We don't want uncapped SDU emissions because that means uncapped Atlas emissions. So Atlas emissions would get out of control, no good for the currency. So what we're going to do is we are going to, first of all, shut down the RFR redemption recipe. Remember, RFRs are kind of a temporary fix in order to transition from where we were with Sage at launch with the raffle or the Golden Carnival mechanic, and where we want to be once Starbase releases with the fixed emissions curve that is distributed based on LP. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove RFRs. And you might be saying, well, what the hell? Like, RFRs are the only sync for SDUs, especially considering once we do this Starbase transition, we're going to remove all the other redemption recipes like the Fimble Air Bike. So it's just going to be game mechanics. And eventually we're going to add in, obviously ships will be craftable in game, but that's going to be a much more complex, involved process. Okay, so your question is, where are SDUs in this picture? SDUs are one of the primary ingredients in Starbase upgrading. Each Starbase upgrading tier requires SDUs. That said, what we're going to do is, because Atlas emissions are now fixed, we don't have to worry about runaway SDU emissions. So we're going to uncap completely SDU emissions, and we're going to have them required proportionally to the increase in the uncap. We're going to have them required in the upgrading recipes. So that should, in the long run, in terms of the volume, balance out SDUs, but obviously has consequences kind of in the short run of uncapping those SDUs. Now, obviously, up until this release, SDUs are still operating the exact same as they did before. They're still capped. Of course, on Thursday, we're going to have a slight adjustment. That's partially actually for us to run a sort of an experiment, see how things shake up when we do uncap those, adjust the cap from 1,500 to 2,000. So this would be an opportunity for us to see what things look like. And then once we transition over to the new game or Atlas mechanic, that's when we're going to kind of see that big shakeup in the SDU emissions. So we felt that was an important feature to keep everybody in the loop on. We kind of went back and forth, and I'm ultimately happy with our decision to let you guys all know that that's something that's going to happen. So SDUs will continue to have a major role in our economy, and the value of them in terms of their economic value will not change, right? They're still going to be essential to earning Atlas, and they're going to still be essential to the economy. Obviously, relatively speaking, their scarcity relative to other resources, that is going to adjust. And that's actually a positive thing. That's an intended effect. We don't want SDUs to be so out of whack compared to the other assets in the game. Okay, my long explanation is over. Hopefully I didn't bore everyone to sleep, Santi.
Chris, we love listening to you, man. We love listening to your updates. But just in case people are wondering, okay, that was a lot of information, don't worry. We'll have you covered with some summaries for when we release the Starbase and prior to that. In fact, Jose is already working on a really, really good Medium article that summarizes everything that is related to Starbase and all the changes that are coming. So don't worry about that. But now, Chris, you covered most, if not all, of the new economic mechanics that there are going to be in Starbase. But any tips you can give to players? What does a player need to have in mind to actually do well at Starbase?
Well, I do think because there's no longer this like guaranteed RFR to Atlas ratio, you do have to be more mindful of making sure you're focusing on something that you're specifically positioned to do well in. So this is the concept of comparative advantage, making sure that you are you're considering your fleet, what ships do you have available, and making sure that you're participating in the correct part of the economy. Now, that was always true, but I think it's more true now with this new Atlas emissions schedule and the LP system than it was before. So that's kind of the first thing. In any free economy, prices are going to be fluctuating in Sage, and it's up to you to try to fill the holes in the market because there's going to be opportunities that arise, and really that's where players who are the most savvy are going to get an edge over those who are not savvy. Ultimately, we're all about competition and developing a healthy, robust, time-proof economy is all going to come down to using the power of the free and open market to our advantage. So, not really, anything too specific there in terms of recommendations, but yeah, I think it's just going to become even more kind of important that you are paying attention to what's going on. And then in the future, when we release combat and all these other new mechanics, it's going to become every single time more and more important.
Nice. So you heard it, guys. Get those spreadsheets ready. Get that data flowing.
Exactly. You're going to need that new ChatGPT model that came out for Sage Labs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, how excited are you to have new economic levers now?
At this stage, the list of levers is getting so long that I don't know how I feel about it. I am excited. I think I sleep easy at night knowing that our economy, we have so much control over it. A lot of people early on in Web3 were really, really scared of, oh, geez, like these assets are permanent, and if you screw up, there's no way to come back. And you guys have seen us make mistakes or maybe be in situations that were suboptimal, and we've been able to adjust them, come back from them through clever, through clever design, but also through these things we call levers. What I'm really curious about is how the levers will develop as we see this new release come out. When we released Sage initially, I think there were probably like 42, 45 levers. And, we thought we had all our bases covered. And even after we released the game, we discovered, oh, there's something we want to do that we don't actually have a lever for. And we had to come up with the levers on the spot, kind of outside of the game logic, in order to manipulate the numbers, for the game, it's the game data. So I feel really comfortable with where we're at. I think I'm almost playing it a little bit looser this time, knowing that we have the ability to interpret the feedback from the playtesters and the feedback from the economy through our awesome data pipeline to be able to make those adjustments. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be I have a lot of confidence in this update. Let's just say that. I think that it's going to be a really, hopefully it should be smooth from an economic standpoint.
Nice. I'm sure it's going to be amazing, Chris. You will be all over that data for sure, looking at it every day before going to sleep, when you wake up, dreaming about it probably as well.
Yeah, that's not far from the truth.
I bet. So yeah, man, I think we covered almost everything related to star-based. So I appreciate you joining us always, Chris. Always a pleasure, man.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. Our pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Chris.
Absolute legend, Chris. He's working on so many things, man.
Definitely fan favorite. Hey, I wanted to jump in quickly, guys. First of all, we've only gotten through the very first part of our town hall agenda, so I know there's a lot of questions out there. We are getting to some of these still. Hopefully you have time. I think it's probably going to be another hour, maybe a little bit less. We might move more quickly through some of this stuff. With respect to claim stakes, just because I see a lot of questions out there, we are making no changes to faction claims right now. Our objective is to transition out of the passive style of gameplay as we have more feature development and utility for the active style of gameplay. Of course, we do want to reward more active gameplay, more so than passive gameplay. Now, Faction Fleet, that was a stopgap measure that held us over, as we talked about at the beginning. It's been a couple of years already. The time is now to transition out of that and make sure that people that are actively playing and engaged in Sage are the ones that are benefiting the most economically with their ships. Faction claims we do not yet have in our even in our roadmap for this year. We really need, there's a lot of things up and coming, and actually a number of things I want to mention immediately next that are really exciting, but we don't yet have the any planning in place for claim stakes in Sage just yet. The result of that is that claim stakes will continue to be passively supported in faction claims for the indefinite future.
Nice. So yeah, as Michael was saying, we'll try to leave some Q&A for the end, but we are not even at half the agenda. So Michael, I think we should keep moving here. One thing that everybody knows that is coming after Starbase is combat. Anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, well, not really. I guess, yeah, that the next feature in development once we roll out Starbased is to include combat systems. Now, this may or may not be, just as a fair forewarning, may or may not be accompanied by yet another transition to a new game ID. This might imply you have to withdraw your assets, withdraw your items from the Star-based version of Sage and transition into a new one. I don't know yet. We actually don't know yet. However, Combat would be the next system that comes online. When we bring Combat out, I believe we would also be looking at modifying Starbase, upgrading to include Starbase construction chip. Could maybe correct me there if I'm wrong. However, I do believe we're looking at construction of Starbases when we get started on, or when we introduce combat. Of course, naturally, you're going to be able to destroy Starbases as well. What this implies is that we now have evolving borders and evolving territory control as various Starbases and regions are captured from, or destroyed or defended from one faction and another. That's about it.
Cool.
That's going to be the very next thing we focus on. Who knows? Could be 4 weeks, could be 8 weeks. I'll go outside of the conventional 4 to 6, but I can tell you that we already have some work completed on it. So it's just a question of building out things like the front end and getting fully integrated, getting that tested. But again, less concerned because we're just rolling out Starbased. It's going to be an entirely new feature set for you to explore, and we're looking forward to that for the time being.
Yep.
There's one other thing,
Yep.
actually, Santi, I just wanted to mention because I know, I think I posted about this, and shout out to Brett on our team. He goes by Buzzek on Discord. He gave me the breakdown of what the player profile or Star Atlas account rollout is going to look like. There were 4 different points, 4 different phases of all of that. I'm not going to go through all of those right at the moment, but one of the immediate features for player profile is the ability to manage this game session hot wallet. So permission setting for a game session wallet that can enable things like auto approve of transactions, and you can retain all of your assets in a cold storage, fully secure cold wallet, hardware wallet. So the idea is you keep all of your assets in a very safe place, provide specific permissions for this hot wallet to take game actions while protecting all of your assets, and let you operate more seamlessly within the game. Now, if this is not out right on the immediate release of Starbased, it would be one of the first features that we get included shortly thereafter.
Nice. There are also a couple of other items that we wanted to mention, right, Michael? There's a little thing. I'll let you say it, but there's a little thing that might be coming soon.
Well, I'm going to be very vague on this, but some of you are aware that I made a comment about a face melting feature that's going to be coming this year. Just to be clear, that feature is Sage related. It's actually with respect to the next big evolution of Sage in 3D. Not going to share anything more right now, but I will say we are planning on releasing a teaser of what that's going to look like. Just a teaser demo, or excuse me, video of what you can expect in Sage in April. So sometime in April, we're planning on releasing that. Again, Dom said it, it's an announcement of an announcement, nothing playable in April. This is just a teaser of what we have cooking on Sage in 3D.
Little announcement of an announcement. Yes, exactly. We have to do it. That has to happen.
You know what? This thing, I mean, I wish I could share more right now. And while we were chatting, actually, Santi, you, Danny, and I, and a couple other people were on a call this morning. I know he wanted to leak it, and if Danny wants to leak, it's a big deal. But we're gonna hold it back a few more weeks, and we'll get something into your hands likely in April.
Nice. There are two more things here that we have written down, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one you want to cover next.
Well, I'll go quickly through these ones. So first and foremost, we are looking at ways right now of bringing some utility to CSS plots /habs /crafting stations into Sage. The earliest you would see any of that is sometime following the release of Sage Starbased. Probably after combat systems get integrated as well. But just so everyone's aware, if you own those CSS plots now and you purchase those during start sequence and you have things like a crafting bench or a crafting station, we're looking at ways of including that into the game and creating some utility for those items. And then finally, I know something everybody's really excited about. I am also extremely excited about is the Star Atlas crew. And there's a couple of different applications of crew, but should we just get into it, Santi? Should we just get into kind of crew cards, mobile app, and where we're at on all that?
Just one sec, I see people in the chat asking about the memories. We will be distributing the memories for Mission 2 shortly, so don't worry about that. They are already staged and should be distributed very soon, just for everyone asking in the chat. Don't want to cut the momentum here, so let's go to the crew side of things, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Jacob will mind, but just and I mentioned this in Foundation Room. I hope it's not too personal for him, but Brave Target, Jacob, our CTO, co-founder, just had a third baby. Actually, just had a baby, so he has been kind of out of pocket for a couple weeks here, and just taking care of bringing a new person into the world. So everyone give Brave Target a congratulations on that. He'll be working on, sometime in the next week or so on those memory distributions.
Yeah. Everyone is allowed to tag Brave Target right now in the chat and give him congratulations.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Jacob.
He's probably sleeping as we speak, but hopefully anyway.
Yeah, I hope he can get some sleep. I know how tough it is to get a newborn. So yeah. Let's get on the crew side of things, Michael. I don't know where you want to start here. Let's Did you mention already about the Sage part?
Well, I think what I was alluding to is that there are actually multiple applications, multiple utility points for crew members. I'm excited for all of these. This goes down to, first and foremost, crew member is your avatar in Unreal Engine. It's your playable character in UE. It is necessary for ship composition, ship loadout, the way that you place crew members in your ship as we navigate into the next phases of both Sage and Unreal Engine. The 2.2 launch is going to have full ship configuration, which implies that you can customize your crew member loadout within your ship, and that is going to directly impact the attributes and stats of each one of your ships. I also think it's super cool the way we're doing this, that you're going to be able to, for the first time, use crew members as your PFP. Now, I think I'm actually going to leak something here.
Do it.
I've never shared this. The number of crew members is going to be quite large. Just to give you all some rough numbers that we have from Econ right now, is that our crew member liability for ships, existing ships out on the market. So you guys will recall, if you own a ship now, this is like a fully equipped ship. You have components, in some cases upgraded components, and you also have crew members that will be airdropped with these. So the existing ship liability is something like 2.1 million crew. Now, I expect that we'll probably see a liability of upwards of 2.5 million crew by the time we get to what everyone is referring to as a snapshot, and I'll clarify on that as well. Probably have something like 2.5 million crew. Now, what we're likely to do is release a total of something like 10 million crew. This is all still in discussion, all subject to change, but we are looking at minting about 10 million crew. Now, a lot of those crew, the vast majority, are going to be, call it lower class. I hesitate to even say that, but less rare crew members. However, there's a probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 of those crew will be legendary crew members, and something under 500 will be anomalous crew members. That's the total out of all 10 million crew. These are rough estimates right now. So, you can imagine if you land yourself one of those legendary crew members that can also double as your PFP, that's pretty rare and pretty exciting. And to me, that's actually one of the more exciting components of this crew drop, is just how valuable those extremely rare PFPs and crew members will be in the future.
Nice.
Of course,
we definitely didn't have that in the agenda, so absolute leak here, guys.
I couldn't hold back. But, and then of course the other thing is that these crew members are going to be directly utilized within the mobile app. We'll talk about the mobile app kind of at the tail end here. Mobile fitness app, slot in your crew member, go on a walk, run, bicycle ride, level up your crew member. And then of course, given the kind of interoperable, composable nature of our ecosystem, those same crew members can be slotted in Unreal Engine, or ultimately when we get into ship configuration in Sage, you will also be able to slot in your crew members there.
Nice. So one thing that we were chatting about, Michael, as well, regarding crew cards and just crew, is that crew members are going to have unique stories, attributes, and stats, right? Is there something you can share about that?
Yeah, well, massive shout out to Jose here on this one, because he specifically has been building out this massive timeline of all events, all history, everything that's happened in Star Atlas, and through AI and procedural generation, effectively a form of GPT, we're going to be, as you said, generating unique backstories for every single one of these crews. So yes, 10 million crew, that sounds absurd. Imagine 10 million crew, each with a unique backstory and unique history, unique aptitudes, complete one-of-ones. I don't care if they're common crew or legendary crew, you still have a unique one-of-one. That's pretty unreal, actually. 10 million different crew members, all with a unique history and a unique story. Now, there will be cases. So I see people bringing up Sammy Banks and Atoll. These are what we're kind of referencing to right now as replicants. So there is the possibility in the future for multiples, non-unique one-of-ones. So these, I think Anatole right now is anomalous and Sammy Banks is legendary. I might have that inverse. I don't remember exactly. They're going to retain those rarity levels, but they will, of course, be duplicates or multiples of the same unit. Wanted to clarify that. But I think this is just so incredibly cool. Again, it doesn't matter if you get the legendary, it doesn't matter if you get the anomalous. Of course, when you have the higher rarity, you have more aptitudes available to you, better and faster leveling in specific categories. But every single one of these is a unique crew member that you can just fully embrace and associate yourself with.
That is massive, actually. Massive. Shout out to Jose, absolute legend. And I know this is a question that a lot of people have. So how they will be able to get the crew cards, I know a lot of people probably know already as well. But we heard that by just owning Stratless ships right now, you will be able to get them. You touched on it a little bit as well. But how will people be able to qualify for the quote-unquote airdrop? How is that going to work?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we've said this over and over again, so our existing community is probably well aware, but if you've been purchasing any ship assets from us since the GAL Phase 1, which was September of 2021, all of those ships and any ships that you hold right now are eligible for this airdrop. Now, the airdrop is going to consist of, again, various upgraded components for all ships. The ranges are kind of subject to the ship and the original pricing model, and then the repricing that came through with V2. We actually have literature out there that you can read about how we reconciled previous pricing with the new pricing model and adjusted various components that are distributed with ships as a way of accommodating that. But again, alongside that, all of your ships will be accompanied by crew. Now, in the future, when you buy a ship, when we make this transition, your ship is going to have a tier 0 default component for anything that is necessary to fly it: shields, weapons, warp drive, etc. You will have a tier 0 base component. Those, of course, can be upgraded, replaced, crafted through time. Things like ship mastery in 2.2 will contribute to the loot that you get and your ability to modify your ship over time. However, when you buy that ship in the future, you will need to buy crew separately. You will need crew for your ship to operate it, and you are going to need to purchase that crew through these crew packs that we will be selling. So as of right now, the only thing you need to do is just hang on to your ship. I think we're going to talk a little bit about here next about the process. I don't know if I want to jump into it just yet. So let's stick to the agenda, and yeah, we'll talk about when and how in the future.
Okay. Just to recap what you said, Michael, right now, people who own ships will have the crew members included, given the crew slots that they have. So one crew slot, one crew member, and you don't need to do anything as a player to qualify. We'll get into that right now. So we have been doing some R&D on this. So maybe, Michael, you want to cover now what's the tech behind the crew cards?
Yeah, well, and I mean, the truth is we're still in the middle of R&D. Sammy and Ryan on our team, I believe, are in the middle of the R&D. It is looking promising for compressed NFTs, so that's the CNFT standard. Now, there's a lot of other cool benefits about utilizing something like CNFT, which includes compatibility with other marketplaces. So Magic Eden and Tensor, for example, these crew members would be immediately tradable on those different marketplaces because of utilizing the CNFT standard. Also reduces the cost substantially for minting tens of millions of these crew members. And it allows us, most likely, it allows us to facilitate kind of the next step of the process, which is how do you convert or how do you transition from a ship that is fully equipped and just call it, pre-configured, to a ship that is fully customizable, modifiable with individual components. So the way that we think it's going to work right now, this is the information I have right at the moment, is that it is not a snapshot. So you don't have to worry about, hey, I bought the ship on this day, did I hit the snapshot or not? The way it is going to work is actually through a conversion program. You can kind of think of it almost as a currency exchange. You put $1 into a machine, you get 4 quarters out. It's kind of like that. You're going to take your ship and you're going to send it to this program. And in return, you are going to get the ship hull. You're going to get any components associated with it, and you're also going to get any crew cards associated with it as well. And then, of course, that ship that you sent in, that ship just gets burned. Now, alongside this, we will be transitioning the marketplace over. So there will be a point in time, which we will announce in advance, but I can tell you it's coming pretty soon. There will be a point in time where we remove at least all of the primary sales of any ships that are available in the GAL right now. And we move those over to the new ship hull IDs, the non-fully equipped ships, right? And when we make that transition, if you purchase after that date, after these new items and new listings are up in the marketplace, you no longer have the ability to redeem with all of the benefits, all of the perks. Now, I'll just come out and say right now, we are looking at sometime in mid-April to facilitate the crew drops and crew sales. So, could be 6 weeks away. Again, just to emphasize, all dates subject to change. Not entirely sure, but as of right now, I would expect sometime in April we facilitate this transition. So, very important to note. If you and we're going to have to figure out how to support, by the way, the GAL 1 ships that are unredeemed alongside the new the new ship offerings that have been redeemed or are hull only, because it's possible that somebody wants to sell their pre-redeemed ship to another player. We want to support that. And entirely possible for you to buy a pre-redeemed ship. You purchase that, you go through the redemption process. You end up with these crew cards, and what's really cool about the crew cards too, by the way, I didn't mention, is just that these are all completely randomized. We're thinking about putting some probabilistic changes depending on any number of inputs where maybe there's more favorable rates for particular card types. As of right now, it's a uniform card. Everybody has the same probability of getting any rarity of card, but we might throw a little spin on that as we get closer to the release. Was that clear, Santi?
Nice. Yeah, I think it was. And I'm sure also people are asking themselves, well, not themselves, asking us, what about the mobile app? What is going on with the mobile app?
Yeah. Oh, thanks for the reminder. Yeah, I mean, so the mobile app, we have actually completed all of the front end development on this. So that part is promising. What we're working through right now is trying to figure out where we can pull resources from our blockchain team to work on the blockchain integration into the mobile app. It is, in fairness, lower priority relative to some of the other things that we have in development, specifically referring to, things like the DAO, things like the DAC platform, of course, Sage, and all of the blockchain integration that is necessary for R2.2. So most likely right now it's a late Q3 launch, but again, we'll have to see where that actually gets, where we actually find some resources for that.
Cool. So yeah, I think that covers almost everything related to crew. And we're not even at half the agenda, so I think we should probably move quite fast through the next few things.
Yeah.
We should talk a little bit about the DAC platform now.
Just one more thing on crew, which I
Yeah.
didn't mention, and then we'll move on, and that is that the plan is to add utility for crew in Sage as well. Two different versions of this. One is just being able to bring crew into Sage or Starbase at the CSS. Now these crew can be used exclusively for crafting, right? So if you just want to build out a crafting crew, you can do that by purchasing these crew packs and depositing them to CSS. A later version of that, or kind of depending on how the research goes, would be enabling the transportation using transport ships of crew to various star bases, so you can set up these crafting operations at different star bases throughout the map. But in the immediate term, it would be, hey, buy your crew packs, set up a crafting crew in the CSS, and then keep all of your ships fully employed. Speaking personally, I think half of my ships are probably unemployed right now, technically, because I'm using them as crafting crew. So I think some big utility in that as well.
Yeah, that is quite massive, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's get to the DAC platform.
Yeah,
We just released an MVP. Well, we just finished the MVP technically.
we did. And Santi, I'll tell you what, man, I am going to try to wrap this up in about 10 minutes. So probably blaze through this, and then I do want to leave some room for questions. I don't think we've done Q&A in a while. So to your point, yes, we just released and really and deployed what we consider the full MVP of the DAC platform. Some of the latest changes that came out. By the way, if you haven't seen it or didn't check the announcement, there has been an additional release since the original release a couple weeks ago. So things like the intro page is now fully mobile friendly. In fact, the intro page was completely reworked. I think it's kind of much prettier than the landing UX UI originally. The manage view, it now highlights the DAC you own and the DACs that you're a member of. The Explorer view, it no longer shows your DACs pinned to the top. The name case of the DAC is now consistent throughout the application, so uppercase, lowercase, etc. The owner of the DAC is now listed as such, listed as an owner of the DAC and a member of that DAC. You can also assign members to specific roles, organize your DAC with the roles manager, and you can also approve or deny multiple applications within a single transaction. This kind of goes into a big part of our philosophy around identifying efficiencies with batch transaction processing. That, of course, is not only superior from a gameplay perspective, it also helps keep costs lower, even though costs are quite low. And really the big thing for me that's up and coming would be, and I don't have timelines on this right now, but things like adding the DAC treasury with multi-sig support, would be using squads multi-sig for that, or at least that's the leading contender right now. But being able to manage collectively guild resources through a multi-sig wallet, I think is extremely valuable. This kind of also leads into things like borrowing and lending of guild assets amongst members. You have a guild treasury in that wallet of some ships, and you can recruit new players. Maybe they don't own an asset, but you can lend it out through player profile. You can let them borrow that ship, go play, maybe share in revenue with the DAC, or otherwise just let them use the asset and learn how to play. There's been a big request to put socials, so link outs to social media in the DAC description. That's something that's pretty easy that we can support. I think we'll get that added sooner than later. And then again, making improvements to the profile system so that you can actually analyze, view a player's assets when they're applying with you. You can see what they have in their wallet, and you can use that as at least a component in the basis of determining whether or not you want to accept them or recruit them into your DAC.
Nice.
I did see a question here from PG, and I just want to PG, I had mentioned, so with Star-based, if not immediately available, one of the very next features that we add on the release of Starbase is a game session hot wallet integration using player profile into Sage. What that implies is you essentially you can keep all of your assets in your ledger, but all of your transactions can be auto approved, seamless, all happening in the background as you play.
Cool. Michael, should we cover a little bit about the DAO?
We should. I know this is something that a lot of people have been asking about. Trust me, it is something that's highly important to me as well. What I can tell you is that we have not yet even begun any discussions about when can we prioritize DAO. My best guess on when we're going to be able to do that is really the end of the second quarter here. So probably think May, June before we start looking at getting the DAO reprioritized. However, the plus side is that we are planning on getting work done on the DAO this year, and it's probably going to happen in the second half of this year. And the feature set that we would be looking at immediately supporting is adding that proposal and voting mechanism into the DAO. And realistically, once we get proposals, once we get voting officially online, on chain with communication or discourse forum, there we have a very solid basis of a V1 of the DAO. And from there, what's most exciting about that is that gives us access, and by us, I mean us collectively as a community, as a group of people, gives us access to the DAO treasury. As much as right now, we would love to take your guys' feedback and guidance and say, hey, why don't we use the DAO assets to do X, Y, Z? Why don't we use the DAO assets to even build the DAO? I feel that it's a bit inappropriate for us to do that without having the formal process in place for voting and decision making on how to utilize those assets. So the first step for us is get the voting process in place, and then if people want to utilize those funds for various things, well, we fully support that. That could be growing the ecosystem, that could be building out the DAO, that could be building game features, that could be running game jams, hackathons, marketing events, sponsoring conferences, etc. The sky is the limit. That DAO is sitting on a couple $1 million right now. I will say, and I don't say this lightly, and it does require a lot of additional kind of legal analysis on our end right now. However, from what I've seen from a lot of different game projects in the space right now, and maybe they're just taking excess risk, but revenue distribution seems a completely viable path, especially for the DAO, and especially in the scenario where this is not just a pure passive distribution of assets from the DAO, but actually requiring some contribution, some participation. So if you want to be eligible for distributions from the DAO, you have to go in and you actually have to participate in voting. You can't be absent, completely absent, and still see those benefits. But I could see this year a proposal going through that discusses or approves the distribution of some portion of the assets collected through game revenue, which is how we establish the entire revenue structure and cash flow streams into the DAO by design and intentionally to capture a value of the GDP, a portion of that in the form of taxation through all time. So as the DAO is collecting revenue, some portion of that could be distributed out to stakeholders. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm expecting right now. Will lawyers sign off on that? I don't know, but I'm seeing a lot of it happening right now, and I'm seeing a lot of promotion of things like revenue distribution. And to the extent that we are no longer, which we are not, the majority stakeholder in the DAO to this day, I think it's a perfect application of what our DAO is capable of accomplishing. There's one other thing really quickly going to mention here, and we are currently discussing, and I'm strongly advocating for a permalock structure. Maybe a little shout out to Virtual here because I know he's been asking for something like this for a while. When I say a permalock structure, what that implies is there will be no way to recover that polis once you contribute it to the DAO. Now, that is effectively a burn mechanism. However, for anyone who's heard me speak previously, I am not an advocate for burning value as a way of perceptively creating value for the rest of the ecosystem. It's actually not, when you see people burning tokens, that's not creating value. It's actually just destroying existing value and redistributing that to the remaining units within an ecosystem. However, if we have a permanent lock structure with some significant multiplier over the 10x that is currently available on 5-year, it is not destroying that value. It's converting that locked value for a significantly higher multiplier. So it actually creates new value into the ecosystem based on that multiplier, not a destruction of value. You can't ever get that polis back. And hesitate to say it, but I mean, it could be something like a 25x multiplier, right? That is arbitrary. Maybe it's a 15x. We have to figure out where we land here. But the idea is that there's some significant benefit. It pulls all of that polis out of circulation, and it gets converted into a lifetime representation within the DAO, including anything, any cash flow distributions that may result from that. So, said a lot there. I think we're going to wrap it up on the extra kind of outside features that are outside of game development. These are things that we think about daily, just a matter of pulling the resources together for it.
Nice. So there's the updates for the DAO, everyone. And now what we have left is Unreal Engine. That's a lot also as well. And we have some images as well that we wanted to share with you guys. What should we talk about first, Michael? Maybe the metagravity test?
Yeah, well, that's the big kind of the big teaser. Yeah, and to your point, I mean 2.2. I'm not going to get deep into what 2.2 is. We've covered this extensively. It was presented in the keynote at Breakpoint. You guys know the core gameplay loop is competitive combat racing. We add things like character progression, ship configuration, ship mastery. Those are all fully on-chain mechanics. With variety of multiplayer races. Metagravity is one of the biggest feature kind of developments that will accompany 2.2. And using metagravity, this is the user concurrency multiplayer scaling infrastructure. What we've tested through time is anywhere from a couple hundred single or users into a single lobby. We've provided some demos with 5,000, with 30,000 users in a single lobby. Now, in those cases, these were AI bots that were demonstrating network connectivity and replication. But what we really want to get into is testing this technology out with real players. And we ran that first test. When was that, Santi? Was that was in December, right? Right before we went on break?
I don't remember, man. Like, time flies here. I don't know.
I think that was.
Mid-Jan, Chip is saying in Sigi.
Was it mid-Jan? Okay, wow. Yeah, I'm kind of losing my mind as well. But okay, so that was mid-January. Well, the good news is we have another one coming up. Now, what you might have noticed if you joined the first one, performance was a little bit spotty at best, but we've learned a lot from that. More importantly, we've got a really cool gameplay mode that's coming out alongside this. So it's not just going to be a little social instance. There's going to be things to do, and it's going to be faction-based competition. That's all I've been approved to share about it. So I'm not going to say.
We have an image, Michael. We have an image.
All right. Well, let's share that image. And I will also say that this time around, we're going to be adding some economic incentives as well. So you can think in terms of Atlas and other rewards. In fact, I'll pause, give everybody a chance to see the image. I love the teaser that we shared that has no other players in it, but it is beautiful. By the way, this competition is going to be taking place in the showroom environment, and you can obviously see the new mechanics for jetpacking there.
Nice. Yeah, it's a nice looking one, man. Let me see if I can pull this up here. I may crash, by the way, but let's see. Do you see it?
I do see it.
Nice. Cool. It was quick. You can check it out on sneak peeks as well. So.
Okay. This is unrelated, but Danny did just send over a. Okay, yeah, you guys have it here. Yeah, sneak peek of the X5 animations. We'll post that a little bit later. Let me just, before we get too far along here. So metagravity stress test up and coming. Good chance we see this within a couple of weeks. The goal would be to have the next stress test here in March, possible. That goes into April. We are also working around GDC, Game Developers Conference. That's the third week of March. I'll be with Metagravity, by the way. So we are kind of working around that schedule, but the goal here is to have this next stress test available in March with the Metagravity testing. Ignore my cat there. I think you guys are all extremely familiar with her at this point.
Yes, we are.
She's perfectly fine. I think she's telling me this thing has been going on too long now, but hopefully everyone out there is enjoying it. Now, kind of wrapping things up here, the economic rewards. So this stress test is going to be targeting up to 2,000 players, concurrent users, in this single lobby. This competition's going to be, again, ongoing between the 3 different factions. Now, we'll be tracking player participation across multiple stress tests leading up to full beta. But for this particular for this particular test, there are Atlas rewards, and there is also an item reward. Now, what is the item? We are looking at distributing crew cards as possible rewards. The crew cards that get chosen, that get distributed, would be based on the faction that wins. Now, what else about the rewards? This is going to scale based on the number of concurrent users that we achieve. If we, again, kind of pulling arbitrary numbers, but if we pull out, or if we get less than 500 users in the server, you will get the base level rewards. Everybody will, and that'll be distributed proportionally based on time spent in the game and kind of how your contribution to the game. If we get up to 1,000 users, there's an enhanced reward. 1,500 users, a better reward. And if we get our cap or close to cap, probably 1,800 users, then you're going to get the highest tier of rewards, which means more rare crew cards get distributed to everyone. It means more Atlas total included in the reward pool. So, and again, we're looking at potentially having this available within a couple of weeks in March. So get out there, tell your friends. If you need game keys, let us know. We're happy to distribute those. But let's get out there and try to hit this 2,000 concurrent player cap. The whole purpose is to stress this system out and make sure we've got good tech behind us.
Yeah, more users, more rewards. Works exactly like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Should we share the sneak peek while you go through the next few things, Michael? The X5?
Yes. Sure. Drop the X5. Yeah. I'll go a bit close or a bit quick through the rest of these. All right. Really, the only other thing I want to cover here are timelines. Everybody's asking, when again, and yeah, this X5 just looks insane. Nobody's really going to be listening to me during this part. But
you have to keep going, man. I'm sorry.
As to when the target dates, again, best estimates, we are looking at having a private beta release of R2.2 at the end of Q2. So June 30th is our internal target date for this right now. When I say private beta release, what does that mean? That means that your game access keys right now are not necessarily going to be eligible for this beta release. We'll be sharing some details over the coming weeks of how you can qualify to participate in the 2.2 beta when that does go live, whether it be June, July, or some later date. Why would you want to participate? Well, not only is it all of the coolest, latest mechanics that we're rolling out, but there's going to be a ton of really good loot that we're including with that as well. Cosmetics and just a ton of different awards or rewards that you can earn that are going to be completely exclusive to beta participation. That beta round, we would probably expect to take a good, 2, 3, 4 months, so we can continue to refine and polish. What we would be looking at is officially a late Q3 release of 2.2. And at that point, this becomes 24/7 live ops, publicly accessible multiplayer MMO. Like, we are officially live as an MMO with the Metagravity integration at that point. Now, again, dates all subject to change, but if you guys just think a little bit about what kind of big events do we have in Q3 of this year, you can probably get a good estimate of when we plan to release this and where we will be announcing it. So
yeah, that private beta, man, that's going to be a spicy for sure.
It's definitely something that people are going to want to get access to, and again, we'll be sharing some details on how to do that. So, with that said, this is combat racing. It's multiplayer, third-person shooter, still in experimental mode. I see we actually have looks like Danny dropped some images here of gun models. These are looking sick. You want to share those?
Ship it, Dominic Bain. Ship it.
As I mentioned, ship mastery, character progression, ship configuration. Somebody asked about R4 burn. Yes, I mean, a lot of these mechanics are on chain. So when you're consuming fuel, you're consuming ammunition, those are items that will need to be crafted, maybe by people in Sage, or maybe purchased on the marketplace. But otherwise, it's going to be consuming those same commodities that are being produced through like the Sage implementation as well. I also want to mention last little thing here. Super early teaser on this, but we did just hire and brought on 2 level designers. Now we these are ex-Star Citizen level designers, and we specifically picked them up because we wanted to reinitiate work on the CSS. And so they've started efforts on the Oni Central Space Station with plans to move them into designs for both Ooster and Mud Central Space Stations. Our goal, hopefully by the end of the year, again, this is longer term, very uncertain of, but by the end of the year, we'd like players to be able to go into the Central Space Station, select a plot of land that they want, start the bidding process on that particular location, and then ultimately go in, construct their hab, customize their home. Again, this would all be metagravity supported, so hundreds of thousands maybe, or let's just say tens of thousands conservatively, running around in Central Space Stations. From a business perspective, this opens up a lot of opportunities for things like brand integrations, brand partnerships, advertising revenues, commercial land plot sales, and otherwise moving into this bigger vision of what the metaverse can be in the future. So, all right, man, that was a ton to cover
That
today.
was a ton indeed, man. You
Yeah.
need probably like a full bottle of water after this one, Michael.
For sure. Yeah, but I did want to save just a few minutes. I actually have another interview in 15 minutes. So why don't we take 1 or 2 questions here, Santi? I'll leave it up to you to kind of pick the best of the best for who to bring up here on stage.
That's some pressure right there, but if you have a question, please raise your hand right now. We will let you in. And yeah, I already see a classic one, man. I know this guy doesn't fail, so let's get him in.
Good day, everybody.
Donald, hey,
So,
man.
this is a
Hello.
throwback, man. This is such a throwback.
Thanks for having me.
You've done well, Santi.
Great stuff, great stuff. I have a very simple question. You actually just now ended the whole thing with brand integrations. Can we expect Honeyland and potential other similar partnerships to take off anytime soon or not anymore? I'm just curious what the status is of that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good question. I'm glad you bring it up. We have a number of open conversations with other builders, specifically across Solana, but tease Shrapnel as well. We've been establishing partnerships with different projects across gaming and across Solana to create an opportunity to craft items for their games or their products directly within Sage as one of the crafting recipes. Now, we had to sideline that as we were moving into Starbase development. What that does require is a bit of a restructuring in how we are going to identify through the UX and the UI these third-party crafting recipes. We didn't necessarily want those conflated with the recipes that are specific to Star Atlas. So we're restructuring the menu system in the crafting workshop. I would say shortly after we get Starbased out, we'll probably be rolling out support for third-party craftable items.
Cool. Thank you very much. And
Cool.
Really great presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Ronald.
Awesome. I'll let one more person in. I invited Selden from Heimdall to the stage.
How's it going?
Hello, friend.
Hey, thanks for having me up. I'm personally thinking a lot in terms of how can I set up my children and the future on something like this, because as Mike Wagner brought up long time ago in one of his first videos, this really is potentially the future of work. And so is there a way that with the hot wallet account, the game account, that the character name can be tied there and not against the cold wallet, or potentially the cold wallet have the ability to change the character name in the future?
I'm going to be honest with you. This probably gets down into a level of detail on how the profile system is designed that I'm not the best person to answer. But the purpose here is to create highly customizable both profiles, characters, and permission management across all of these accounts. So if your question is like, can we have a permissioned account as a profile that can manage game assets uh, in a cold wallet? The answer to that should be yes. This would be like establishing a character under a profile that then has access to specific assets within your hardware wallet. And when you do that, then the character, which I assume is going to be one of your children or your child, then they would have all of the progression under their name. I don't know if that's exactly what you're asking, but short answer is yes, it should be
That's
possible.
actually what I would appreciate, because not necessarily want to hand off the character progression that I create, but if I had set up a second cold wallet, if you will, and transferred some of my resources there, then they could benefit from the resource, but still have to do the character progression themselves. And then they would be able to benefit from the act of actually playing through it and growing themselves.
Yeah, and you wouldn't even need a separate cold storage wallet for that. If again, I'm probably not the best person to articulate this, but you should be able to have a single cold storage wallet, multiple profiles with permissions to access that, and within those profiles, you have a character. Now that would be one of your children, or each one separately, just like you were creating another character in any MMO, you would have the set of characters, each one associated with you and children and anyone else. You provide access to the assets that are in your cold wallet to all of those profiles. Of course, you wouldn't be able to all use them at the same time, but if you're not playing and one of your children is playing, then they would have access to those assets. All of the progression with that character would be associated with that profile and that character. Does that make
Thank
sense?
you.
Thank you for the question, friend. Cool, Michael. I think we can wrap it up here. I know you have an interview shortly.
Yeah. I saw
so-
I really do only have 1 minute. I saw Virtual and Bodhi. I maybe bring both of them up really quickly, and I will
Okay.
just try to give a 2-second answer to those guys.
Okay, cool. Both of them in. Let's
Yeah.
start with Virtual. Go
I'll
for
be
it, Frank.
fast. This is more of a plea for functionality, but with the crew app, will we be able to allocate any XP earned to any type of crew member? Because I know originally it was just racers.
Again, I can't actually give you an answer on that one right now because the mobile app is still quite a bit out. The whole idea is that the crew that are in the mobile app, though, are leveling up their racing profession. We're not necessarily doing that because we want to restrict it just to racing, but building out all of the other profession like skill trees will take some time. So we focused on racing because our 2-2 is competitive combat racing, and so that's why we tied those two together.
Should I dox your cat, by the way, Michael?
Please don't. She's highly concerned about OPSEC.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, man. Bodhi, man, go for it, my friend.
Thanks for the invite. Great presentation. I was just wondering, how is the LP going to be calculated for different assets? For example, if somebody contributes one SDU and someone else contributes one toolkit, how are those going to be weighed?
Yeah, I mean, this is really a better question for Chris or maybe even Chip. Chris, you want to jump in and take that one?
So we will be weighting each of the different assets based on kind of their importance. So you're going to get more LP for a more scarce or more difficult to produce asset. The simple as that. I will say the upgrading process is going to yield disproportionately more LP than the upkeeping process, just because the upkeeping process is, it's just R4, so it's a much simpler, kind of easy to complete action.
Sweet. Thanks, guys. Again, great presentation.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Bodhi, man.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Okay.
Man, we covered a ton. Quite wild.
That was this was a big town hall. I think we had one right at we did have one right before we went on break, but this feels good. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Just a start really to this year, but man, we have so much lined up. I'm super excited about all of it. We'll be publishing the roadmap just as soon as possible. And again, as I mentioned right at the beginning, it's going to outline how all of these different products that we're focused on right now kind of align with one another and how we're tying them all together through feature releases. But thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening in. Santi, as always, thanks for being my amazing co-host up here.
It's a pleasure, man. It's my pleasure. And everyone, don't forget that Community Week still continues. Remember to go to the very top of the server, scroll up through all the channels, and you will see the Atlas Brew happening tomorrow. We also have Copa happening on Thursday and Joni Awards on Friday, so make sure you don't miss that. But that is all. Thank you everyone for joining the Town Hall number 42, and Michael, always a pleasure to be here on stage with you, man.
Indeed, power to the people.
Stick it to the man. See you guys.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Encerramos o Town Hall de hoje. Várias notícias bombásticas aí. E quem acompanha aqui o canal já tá ligado. Não teve muita surpresa, apesar de ser coisas que vão modificar bastante a economia e o modo de se jogar esta Atlas. Mas não teve tanta surpresa assim, né? Eu já falei de vários assuntos aí que eles citaram hoje como que poderiam acontecer, né? E aconteceram. Tipo, os SDUs, por exemplo. Eu estava fazendo já a mudança de frota de SDU para frota de mineração. E aí os SDUs agora vão ter quase o dobro, né, de oferta, o que vai significativamente modificar o preço que é agora. E entre outras coisas, né, como com a entrada do Starbased vai diminuir aí 30% a produção de Atlas pelo Faction Fleet, o que é a tendência, né, que a gente já vem enfrentando essa tendência e sabia que ia, né, cada vez mais ter essa tendência de migrar o Atlas da Faction Fleet para o Sage, né? Sabemos aí também que o Faction Fleet, inclusive, vai ser descontinuado algum tempo depois do lançamento do Starbased, o que é a primeira vez, inclusive, que o Michael fala de descontinuação da Faction Fleet. Então, quem tem aí as frotas na Faction Fleet já fica atento, né, para justamente não ser pego de surpresa na hora, né? Então, já vai pensando aí o que é que você vai fazer, se vai entrar no Sage, se vai vender as naves, enfim, aí é com vocês. Então, o fornecimento de SDU vai ser aumentado, né, para 2.000 unidades de SDU por minuto, e, né, vai ter uma demanda, uma oferta maior, na verdade, e a demanda continua a mesma, praticamente. Isso só vai mudar quando começar o Starbased. Então, fica ligado aí, tá? Pra não ser pego de surpresa aí na hora que realmente acontecer. Só que como a precificação ela já acontece na notícia, então provavelmente, eu nem olhei aqui, mas provavelmente no mercado, no marketplace, o SDU já deve ter caído de valor, tá? E com a entrada do Starbased, né? Vamos aqui pro Starbased, vai ser mais colaborativo, então vai ser entre facções, tá? As facções, elas vão construir as Starbases. Quem construir ali mais rápido vai ganhar uma porção maior de LP, consequentemente de Atlas, o que vai ser muito interessante, né? Porque vai adicionar toda uma competitividade. Agora a gente vai se reunir como facção. Inclusive, em falar em reunião, a gente tem aí o Brew para falantes da língua portuguesa. Convido a vocês vai ser no Discord do Star Atlas, às 20 horas, tá? Vai estar lá o Zesk, o Santi, então tem a BR aí, cola lá. E aí, além de ser mais colaborativo, né? Vão começar a CSS, como a gente conhece hoje, vai funcionar como uma Starbase nível 6, né? E o resto das Starbases, elas vão cair ali para um nível 0, não, Tier 1, na verdade. E vão ser pré-populados, mas vão ser Tier 1. Então, a gente não vai começar do zero, mas vai estar lá Tier 1, tá? E a CSS vai ter mais coisas para craftar, certo? Então, o beta teste, inclusive, vai começar essa semana, o que já é um indicativo aí que as coisas estão avançadas e que de 2 a 5 semanas aí para o lançamento do Starbased, muito antes, inclusive, do que eu estava pensando que seria. E o que é bom, né? E aí, o Atlas, a emissão do Atlas, né? Não vai ser mais através dos como é? RFRs, eu acho que é RFR, né? Tá, hoje que você vende e consegue 2 Atlas, né? Eu creio que é isso. Mas, desde quando foi criado esse sistema, eu tô alertando para vocês que isso aí não vai valer nada, inclusive vai ser descontinuado. Então, vai ser descontinuado para o plano de LP entrar em ação, certo? Que aí sim o LP vai ter um valor muito maior para o ecossistema, tá? Que você vai usar para várias coisas e você vai ter uma maior retenção de valor, tá? Transformando isso em LP, uma fatia aí de Atlas, né? E isso vai ser substituído pelo craft de componentes, né? Que aí sim vai ser a geração de Atlas para quem estiver jogando, tá? E no jogo em si, a gente vai precisar de quê? Manter e reabastecer as Starbased. E para isso, a gente vai precisar abastecer elas com toolkit e comida. Lembra que eu falei que alguns itens que estavam obsoletos, que não tinha muita usabilidade, você vai ver agora o preço da comida indo para a lua, tá? E eu citei, inclusive, a comida, certo? Pode olhar aí. Em vídeos desses aí, eu falei exatamente o que aconteceu agora, certo? Então, eles vão dar utilidade aí ao food e vai ser para retenção das Starbases, né? Para manutenção, junto com o toolkit. Então, o toolkit aí vai ganhar mais valor ainda, né? E é interessante. E vai valorizar, inclusive, o minério de ferro, que eu tô puxando o minério de ferro, né? Ferro e toolkit, assim por diante. Temos mais coisas aqui, como a pré-progressão do Council Rank. Isso aí eu acho que não vai ser logo de cara, mas vai rolar uma pré-progressão. Eu acho que não vai conseguir ver, mas ela vai acontecer, tá? A gente vai ter que migrar para um novo ID, realmente. Então, a gente vai ter que trazer os nossos itens para a Starbase, né? A CSS, como todo mundo aqui que vê o canal já sabe, né? Só que tem um porém aí que vai facilitar a vida da gente, né? Eles vão criar conveniência para a gente poder fazer isso, né? Criar a conveniência para a gente poder fazer esse escoamento aí dos itens que a gente já tem lá na Mid-Risk Zone, por exemplo, certo? Eu praticamente, o que eu tenho lá na MRZ4 é hidrogênio, quase 2 milhões. De resto, tá quase tudo aí na CSS, porque eu já estava fazendo isso, né, há muito tempo e deixei lá tá tudo arrumadinho, certo? Deixa eu ver. E aí, dentro dessas facilidades que eles tendem, tá? Não sei se vão, porque pode mudar, mas eles tendem a fazer essa facilitação, como modificar a distância de warp, por exemplo, botar a distância limitada, né? Só que a gente vai precisar pagar o combustível e as despesas, tá? Eliminando o cooldown também, que vai impactar bastante ter essa facilidade dos cooldowns, né? E que isso vai mudar a curva de emissão de Atlas, né? Saindo ali do que a gente está agora, indo para o Starbased, vai ter essa mudança, certo? E vão ser aí... Agora, o Chris falou 4,5 milhões de Atlas por dia, o Michael falou 6, não sei exatamente qual, vou mais na do Chris, porque o Chris ali tá por dentro da economia do jogo, realmente, né? E as facções, elas vão lutar por uma maior fatia, né? Desse bolo aí, que são esses Atlas que vão ser liberados por dia para as construções da Starbase, tá? Então vai ser 1,5 aí milhões de Atlas por facção, e a gente vai estar lá no MUD, pelo menos eu vou estar lá no MUD, fazendo parte, né, disso aí, tá? O LP, né, a gente ganha ao contribuir com a facção, então construindo Starbases e fazendo qualquer coisa que você ajude a sua facção, você vai ganhar LP, tá? Então, em termos de XP, a gente vai ter um cap por dia, tipo, vamos supor, 1.000 de XP por dia. Não, 10.000 de XP por dia. E é o teto ali que todo mundo pode alcançar, né? Todo mundo faz o que eu falo, é o máximo que pode ser alcançado. E aí, os menores vão alcançar menos, porque não vão ter recurso para chegar lá nos 10.000. Se você tem uma frota muito grande, você pode bater esses 10.000 aí todos os dias, e mesmo assim você vai evoluir bem mais rápido do que quem tem uma frota pequena, o que é justo, né? Você gastou mais, você investiu mais, acreditou mais, então você tende a evoluir mais rápido, tá? Vão surgir novas receitas, eles falaram aí, a gente já vem falando disso há meses atrás, dessas novas receitas, né? E uma dica que o Chris deu é focar no que você tiver melhor posicionado. Qual o leque que a sua frota ela te dá, né? Leque de pegar SDU, leque de fazer craft, você tem muitas naves pequenas ali, ou você chegou a comprar mineradora, tem nave de carga, então isso aí vai cada vez mais ganhar mais importância, certo? Deixa eu ver o que mais. Acho que eu vou fazer um vídeo, inclusive, separado, tá? Esse aqui já ficou muito longo, inclusive. Já falei aqui um resuminho, ainda tem mais coisas. Deixa eu ver aqui. O Crew, né? Que vai ser lá por meados de abril, o que é muito mais próximo do que eu pensava. Eu pensava que já era lá no segundo semestre. Vai começar ao hype do Crew já em abril, certo? Todo mundo vai ter a mesma probabilidade de pegar. Eu sei que vão ter... Eu não cheguei a pegar os números exatos, mas vão ter a separação da tripulação, né? De anomalia, vão ter algumas anomalias, raros, tudo no mesmo bolo. E aí, quem tiver poucas naves aí vai ter a mesma chance que quem tiver muitas naves, tá? A grande vantagem de ter a tripulação separada é você vai poder craftar aí e liberar as naves, né? Para fazerem outras coisas, né? Por exemplo, você tem lá a PX4. Atualmente, a sua PX4 está ligada intrinsecamente com a tripulação. Depois de separado, você vai deixar a sua tripulação lá fazendo craft e a sua PX4 está liberada para fazer outras atividades, tá? Então, vai ser muito bom e vai destravar muito valor, certo? A DAO, ela não tem prioridade, tá? Talvez junho ocorra alguma coisa, que aí eles também falaram que vai adicionar a votação durante o ano, então talvez lá no final do ano a gente consiga ver isso, tá? Uma possibilidade aí de queima, entre aspas, de polis em troca de maiores multiplicadores, certo? Próximo de 25 vezes. É muita coisa. Só que aí você coloca as suas polis lá e não tem como tirar. Então, é o trade-off aí, né? E em relação a Unreal Engine 5, vai ter uma competição aí, o que vocês estão vendo na tela, uma competição entre as facções com incentivo econômico, tá? E esses incentivos vão ser Crew Cards e Atlas de acordo com a quantidade de pessoas participando. Ou seja, tem lá, sei lá, 1.000 pessoas participando, o prêmio é 1. 3.000 pessoas participando, o prêmio é outro. Então, para todo mundo. Então, quanto mais, melhor, né? Isso vai acontecer lá por meados de março também. E é isso, rapaziada. Esse foi o resumo aí pós, tá? Peguei a palavra-chave, tá aí no chat, tá na área 51, tá na EC e tá no Telegram. Então, se você for para algum desses lugares aí, você vai achar a palavra-chave, tá? Eu coloquei lá em todos, certo? Aí, pronto. O bartender chegou aqui com os números, né? Vão ser 10 milhões de crews e 5.000 anomalias, ou seja, muito raro, né? Anomalia vai ser muito raro. E você tem chance, né? Você já tendo aí uma PX4 Airbike, já tem chance. Vai que. Jorge, em relação a polis, eles querem que polis seja reserva de valor pela utilidade? A ideia para a polis é que ela seja uma moeda de governança, certo? E ela retenha o valor da DAO. Se a DAO tem 5 milhões de dólares, o market cap de polis vai ser... A precificação de polis vai ser em função desses 5 milhões. Assim, quanto mais tem grana lá na DAO, mais polis vai ser reserva de valor, vai servir para também fazer movimentos, por exemplo, tem 5 milhões lá no caixa da DAO, né? E aí, as pessoas que têm polis e que votarem vão ter a possibilidade de escolher, por exemplo, a gente quer que tenha uma super ideia aí de um minigame que alguém já criou, tá dando muito bom e quer integrar isso no universo do Star Atlas. E aí, esse financiamento pode ser dado pelas pessoas que votarem e tiverem o polis, e essa grana vai sair dos cofres da DAO por votação da galera que tem polis e ser feito, né? Esse processo. O joguinho lá que tá muito bom, que tá bombando, vai ser integrado lá no ecossistema do Star Atlas. Isso requer toda uma logística, toda uma integração e que vai ser financiada pela DAO. E aí, cada vez mais, polis vai ganhando valor, né? De escolha, de grana, de tudo. Mas, lembrando que isso aí não tá nas prioridades, neste exato momento. O que pode mudar lá no começo para o final do ano. Mais alguma dúvida, rapaziada? A gente já tá aí há um tempinho, né? 2 horas de live. O próprio Town Hall já foi bem extenso, né? Não vou me alongar mais também, porque depois eu faço outros vídeos explicando melhor. Aqui eu já dei uma boa resumida, né, do que aqui rolou, mas vou fazer um vídeo específico para que todo mundo fique com a informação, né, em um vídeo mais curto. Show? Tamo junto. Não esquece de dar aquele like, tá? Para fortalecer. Foi bom acompanhar vocês. Não esquece, daqui a pouco, às 20 horas, vai ter o Brew BR. Então, te espero lá, certo? No Discord do Star Atlas e aqui, certo? Provavelmente vai ser por aqui, tá? Provavelmente vai ser nesse café com Atlas aqui, ó. Então, você vem aqui no Discord, desce. Fechou. Eles falaram até quando a nave comprada vai ter a tripulação? Não. Eles, assim, não falaram exatamente isso, mas vai ser a partir de abril. Abril pra cima, tá? Abril pra lá. Isso aqui é pra minha conta, tá? Porque eles não falaram exatamente quando é que vai ser, não. Mas o processo que eles falaram vai ser muito mais simples de quem já tá no ecossistema, já tá com as naves. Não vai ter screenshot, por exemplo. snapshot, na verdade, não vai ter... Saca? A parada vai acontecer através de... como se fosse um mint ali. Pra você conseguir as outras facetas, né? Da tripulação, dos componentes, de tudo que tiver pra vir. Fechado? O Consul Rank, você fala? Vou ver aqui na colinha. Rapaziada, tudo isso aí vai ser implementado. Consul Rank eu acho que vai demorar mais, tá? Vai ser, deixa eu ver alguma observação. Não botei nada. Provavelmente vai ser lá pra abril. Mais que abril, tá? Então, uns 2 meses aí pra gente se preparar. Valeu. Tamo junto, rapaziada. Boa terça pra vocês. Espero vocês aí às 20 horas, tá? Lá no Discord do Star Atlas. Tamo junto.